Tonight, on Be Something Wonderful, how the law of assumption changes your life. I am your host, Tom Kearin, and this is the Be Something Wonderful studio of higher consciousness, where we help you level up and become the best version of yourself. Creators, welcome back. I heard from one of you, and you mentioned that, that ever since you heard about the law of assumption or the teachings of Neville Goddard, that you were hooked and that you believed that could change your life. And now what you were saying is that now I really even feel worse than I did before, because I believe I'm assuming my wish fulfilled. But when I look at my life, when I look at the conditions around me, they haven't changed, and I just feel worse now. I'm feeling really down now that nothing has changed. And I was just wondering if you could talk about that. Well, guys, we're going to talk about this today and more. Here's really where I want to start today. Now, I've talked a lot about the law of assumption. And in fact, I left about 5 or 6 links to videos below that really unpacks the law of assumption. So I want to take it in a little bit different direction today. If you want to see more detail in the law of assumption, go to those links that I left in the description below. But here's really what I want to say, that the law of assumption is really about power and paradox. So the power in the law of assumption is that once you assume a new version of yourself, a reality, you become it and occupy it. When? In the moment that you assume it. The moment that you imagine it's done. In the moment that you say, this is me now. This is my reality. In the moment that you look at reality and say, I decide what reality is. When you assume it, you occupy it. You are now that person, right? And then the paradox is that every time you look for it, every time you look for signs, every time you look for evidence of it, every time you look at the 3D world, looking to see if you are in your assumption, if you are looking for evidence of that new version of yourself, you're implying, therefore, or assuming that you're not, or in other words, that you're separate from it, that you're not that. Right? You are implying and therefore assuming that you are not that. In other words, that you're separate from it. Do you hear this? That's the paradox. Once you assume it and become it, you are it. Looking for it and looking for something to change implies that you're not it. It now becomes your natural state. It's so natural to you that you don't need to look for anything. Right? You just become it in that instant. Do you see it? You're looking for some big thing, some big trumpet to go off that you are now it. But as soon as you assume it, you are it, right? You don't need evidence, you are the evidence. I really want to hit this today, right? You are the evidence and not anything or anybody else in the outer world can convince you otherwise. You are the evidence, not anything or anything else, right? The physical world is actually only an assumptive world. This is what Neville Goddard says. When you're looking at it, what you're looking at becomes that, right? Because that's the reality you see. You're looking at reality as reality. That's big, right? And I just want to say that your feelings do not come from the outside world. They don't even come from your wish being fulfilled or anything else that you think that you need to feel better. In fact, Abraham Hicks talks about that, right? That everything that you ever want or need is because you think in the having of it that you'll feel better. And she says, why not move to feeling better now? But really, what's she implying here? That nothing in that feelings don't come from those things. Right? They come from you. Where do they come from? Your thoughts about those things. So they come from your thoughts. They come from the story you're telling about yourself and your life. In other words, they come from your assumptions of yourself, your reality, and the concept that you have of yourself and your reality. That's where feelings come from. They don't come from the reality. They don't come from others. They don't come from outside yourself. That sets you free. Now you're not under the tyranny of the 3D world, right? You're not giving your power away to a specific person or to some specific desire that you want. It all comes from you. It all comes from your assumptions. So let's unpack this a little bit more. What you see when you look at something depends not so much on what is there as the assumption you make when you look. This is what Neville was getting at, that it's an assumptive world, right? Remember, 3D reality is within you. The universe and everything else comes when you perceive it or project it into time and space. It's all coming from you, right? We've talked about this in other videos, and I'm leaving links to the law of assumption. But what you see is what you assume, believe, think, and expect to see. That's what you see. It comes all from you. You're looking for evidence of who you're saying you assume you are. When you are the evidence, there's no objective reality outside of your experience of it. Hear this. There's nothing outside of your experience. There's nothing outside of your story. Your life story, what you're telling yourself through your inner speech, through your inner talking, through what you're saying out in outer speech, whatever it is, that's your whole life experience. There's no reality outside of that experience, right? Just like joy doesn't exist outside the experience of joy, or gratitude doesn't exist outside the experience of gratitude. It's all in the experience. So to assume it, in other words, your wish already fulfilled, is to experience it now. To assume it is to experience it now. It's not for some payoff in the future to feel better, right? All feelings come from within you. Nothing, nobody can assert themselves into your reality. You decide what reality is, and you decide what you're going to feel, right? So you're no longer getting pulled around, right? So let's hit this a little bit more. Once you assume the new identity and version of yourself and occupy and live in your imagined or desired end, hear this. This is big. Once you assume that identity, once you occupy that version of yourself, once you declare, decide, and assume who you are in the reality you're going to occupy, every person, event, and condition you perceive is part of the bridge of incidents leading you to the physical manifestation. It's done, right? You've built the metaphysical bridge. You have the metaphysical manifestation. It is finished, right? Now, as you perceive it, everything, doesn't matter what it looks like, is leading you to it. To judge any outcome or any event is meaningless. You have no idea how the pieces fit. You don't have the broader perspective. Only God has that. Only your inner being knows how all those pieces are going to fit, how all the coincidences and synchronicities are going to come together to lead you to the 3D manifestation. It's already done on the metaphysical level. If it wasn't already done, you wouldn't be able to even think or imagine it or assume it, right? It's done, and the metaphysical bridge is built in that dimensionally larger reality. It's done. Perceive everything in 3D as the perfect unfolding, and it will be. What you see and perceive is reality. It's your entire experience. It's all coming from you. So if you see it and say you don't like it, you create something you don't like in that moment. If you see something and you complain, the complaining creates reality. You complain, I've talked about this, you can create the situation you're complaining about, right? If you keep saying that oh no, the specific person I want is getting married, or they're pregnant, or they're engaged to someone else, or there's a third person, or a fourth person, or a fifth person. I don't care if there's 12 people involved. That would be weird. But I don't care, guys. It doesn't matter. It all comes from you. You decide what reality is going to be. I really want to hit this with you today, right? And so it will be. You create it as you assume it as the perfect unfolding. When you assume everything's the perfect unfolding, it must be so. That's really what I'm getting at here. So well-being, fulfillment, and feeling good doesn't come from the outside world or your wish fulfilled, but rather your thoughts that you're thinking about yourself in the world. I used an example maybe a year and a half ago in a video, maybe 2 years ago, I don't remember now, that imagine yourself walking down a dark alley and you start hearing footsteps behind you, and they start getting faster as you're walking faster. You start feeling terror, fear, right? And then suddenly a voice calls out behind you, and it's a friend. All of a sudden, you feel secure, you feel good, you feel you feel safe. What changed? Right? The person didn't change. It was the same person. Right? That 3D world didn't change. Right? That was your friend even before you knew it was your friend. It was your story about it. You were telling yourself a story that maybe it's someone that's going to attack me, or I'm going to get hurt, or something's going to happen. Right? It was only your thoughts and your story about it that created that fear, that ever creates what you're feeling. It's always your story. It's always your thoughts. And then what's above that? Your assumptions, the assumptions of who you are and your relationship to the world. When you assume you're safe, when you assume that nothing can harm you, when you assume that you have everything that you ever want to be, do, want, or have, then it must be. That's the assumption. When you assume that higher concept of yourself, that invincible concept, then you are that. Do you hear this, guys? Remember, those thoughts are rooted in your assumptions about yourself and the world. In other words, your story. The story you're telling yourself, your inner talking, your inner thoughts, right? This creates your entire life experience. It doesn't come from the outside world. Right? That person walking behind you with those heavy footsteps was still your friend when you were telling that story. Right? You created the fear. You create the feelings from the story you're telling yourself. That's powerful. That's liberating. This means nothing can, you can be fearless because nothing that happens in 3D reality has power over how you feel unless you give them that power. Like I said with Jesus and Pontius Pilate, right? Unless it's given from above, right? That 3D world has no power over you, right? When your assumption and story changes, your outer world changes, right? Not just the present and the future, but all time. Do you hear that? Not just the present and future, but all time. Right? Your past, you change your past with the story you're telling yourself. You change it all because there's only now. There's only that one, and everything's happening right now. Right? This is powerful today. So this is where your ultimate freedom lies, right? This is big. The 3D world, the people, events, and circumstances and condition have no power to make you feel anything. It's only your thoughts about them. In other words, what you assume and believe. You are only ever feeling the thoughts you are thinking. So when you say you feel worse before, that's just a story. The story that you're telling yourself. Needing the law of assumption. You're using the law of assumption to get something that you think, and the getting of it will make you feel better. Or to be somebody that you think in the being of it will make you feel better. Instead of knowing that all of that feelings, all of those thoughts come from within you. You get to make those assumptions, right? Nothing in the outside world can make you feel anything. It's all coming from you. Your new assumptions, your new story, your new identity, your new reality. That's your total life experience right now. You get to decide it all. You get to decide what reality is going to look like, right? Feeling only ever comes from the story that you're telling yourself about yourself and about the world. That story, that self-concept, that state that you're occupying. That's big. So now, wanting, needing, grasping for desired outcomes makes no sense. In that knowing that you're only ever feeling your thoughts that you're thinking, and it's not reality or the 3D world or the events and conditions causing you to feel bad. It's only your thoughts about them. It's only because you're believing in your story. You're believing in your thoughts. So why not create a story around that invincibility, around that true concept of yourself, around that person that gets everything they want and already has it all, right? Because you decide what reality looks like and what you feel about it in every moment. And that creates your entire life, right? It makes no sense now grasping for anything. All outcomes become acceptable, right? Because they don't affect how you feel. They can't, only your thoughts about them. It's not the events. It's only your judgment of the events. Do you hear this? This is so what does it mean when you drop the importance? when you decide not minding what happens, when you detach from the outcomes, the paradox is you get all of that you want. It's in the non-wanting that you get everything that you want. That's where the power is, right? No attachment, not minding what happens, not wanting it a certain way, no judgments, no doubts, no fears, no failure. Nothing can go wrong ever again when you know that nothing outside yourself can affect how you feel, only you and your thoughts about it. It's only your thoughts about reality and not reality that affects how you feel. It's only your thoughts about conditions, people, events, and circumstances that affect how you feel, and not those people, events, and circumstances. That's where your freedom lies. You occupy your wish fulfilled, not to get happy or make something happy, not to get happy or make something happen, but for the fun and experience of it right now. That's why. It's to experience that fun right now. If you know that no outcome, no event can make you feel anything, then you can decide what you want to experience just for the fun of experiencing of it. Just to be God-godding, right? Just to be God experiencing this 3D reality in every element of it. That's what we're talking about. That's how the law of assumption changes your life. Guys, there's links below to a bunch on the law of assumption. There's even more on the channel. I think I put about 6 or 7 down there that really unpacks it, right? Takes it to the next level. This is Tom Kearin with the Be Something Wonderful studio of Higher Consciousness, where we help you level up and become the best version of yourself. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification button, like and share our videos. That's how we get our message out. You can follow us on Facebook at Be Something Wonderful. You can also, we have a group called the Be Something Wonderful Ambassadors. It's now growing on Facebook. You're welcome to join. You can join us on Instagram and Twitter at Tom Kearin. A lot of the content is the same right now, but that will be changing very quickly. And you can also visit my website anytime at tomkearin.com, at BeSomethingWonderful.com, or our new shop, the shop at Be Something Wonderful, Dare to Be It shop, and that's at daretobeit.com. Guys, until next time, with great love, with great light, with infinite gratitude, as always, see you soon.